Probably onto the more important stuff is the actual footy itself.
Yep.
Now, the Lions have been in absolute flying form. Jared Berry, a key part of that in his huge role on Oliver in the second half of last week, and him pairing with Lachie Neale in midfield was absolutely fantastic for them. Now, around some personnel for Geelong, because I'll loop back to the Lions in this, is that it doesn't seem like they have too many injury issues to worry about, bar Jake Kolodjasny. His knee issue seems to have him touch and go for the weekend. Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins, Sam Menegola seem to be training away from the main group this week, but not a huge concern for them, it sounds like. Menegola not in the best 22 at the moment anyway, I think. So not a big concern there, despite I think there was a little hiccup with his fitness in the last week or so. But Kolodjasny is the big one, because if he doesn't play, I think that gives the Lions a little bit of an advantage height-wise in their attack. Eric Hipwood, Dan McStay, Joe Danaher have all been pretty prolific in the final series so
Oscar
far.
McInerney comes back as well.
Exactly that. So Oscar McInerney likely to just come in for Darcy Ford, who did fantastically against Max Gorn, but McInerney comes in and might leave Geelong a little short. And it's kind of funny that they do have your Jack Henry, Sam DeConning, and then they do have Zach Guthrie as an option, and Tom Stewart as well. But Stewart obviously likes to kind of play off. I think Jet Hughes will go to Charlie Cameron, and then Guthrie more off the bench. So they kind of need Kolodjasny in there just to kind of either take probably a McStay, Jack Henry on Eric Hipwood, and DeConning on Danaher. But they lose Kolodjasny. It certainly does open them up a little bit. Guthrie is there as an option, but if Kolodjasny comes out, do they bring in Mark O'Connor? Do they tag Lachie Neale? He's not the easiest man to tag. It hasn't exactly been the case for a lot of clubs that have tried this year. Some have gotten through it, but they haven't necessarily won those games even when he has been tagged. So, look, his form at the moment's been absolutely fantastic. He's leading the Gary Ayres Award after 2 rounds, tied with Jordan DeGoey. But do the Cats, I think if Kolodjasny's fit, he has to play. But I think if he's not, do they bring in Mark O'Connor, and then do they use him as a potential run with option?
I think we spoke last week and said, he should tag Neale. Neale took the mickey last week. All Brisbane's leaders were superb, but the things he was doing, that one play, I think it was the last quarter when he came in, he was almost horizontal to the ground, picked it up and handballed it. You can't stop that. You just cannot. But I think you do need to do something. I think he said on a podcast, I think it was Ball Magnets podcast with Paddy Cripps and Tom Mitchell, he said the other week that Mark O'Connor is one that has got a hold of him before. So I mean, I think you have to give it a go. The one worry, if Kolodjasny is to miss, is not only do Brisbane have a lot of talls, but they have a lot of marking smalls. So Lincoln McCarthy loves going for a fly. Charlie Cameron can mark. So they'd probably want a Zach Guthrie to play on a McCarthy just to try and limit his aerial prowess as well as match him on the ground. So I think Kolodjasny missing would create a big hole down there as well, which is probably Brisbane's best chance of getting a hold of the Cats. If they can exploit them down there, that's probably one of their best assets. Their midfield's probably their best asset, which is an area Geelong have always been typically strong in, but their clearance game the last 8-10 weeks has been really, really good. So you'd imagine they'd be able to match Brisbane in there, especially if O'Connor can go to Neale and have an influence on him. Brisbane's defence can be vulnerable at times, so you give Geelong the tip there. So if Brisbane are to win, it's got to happen in their forward 50, as it did against Melbourne. Their forwards were unbelievable at hitting up and getting out the back. Now, Geelong's defence isn't going to get sucked up. They're too smart for that, so you've got to outmark them. Simply as that. And Kolodjasny missing, I think, would go a long way to helping Brisbane do that.
I think it's so funny when you look at some of these top teams and you just say, Kolodjasny's not a player that's going to light the game on fire, but you pull just someone of his stature out, and how much it actually shifts and how much a hole does open up, even though, he's probably their 5th, 6th best defensive option. He can play that versatile height, tall and small, lockdown option. So it's such a funny one when you look at some of these sides, and you've got a bottom 6 player probably. Pull him out, and it does create a bit. People think you can always put Mark Blitzarves back there, but Blitzarves is the one you have to have in your midfield, I think, at this point.
Could Blitzarves go to Neale?
Yeah, and also could be the one that I think not necessarily maybe run with, but stoppages that he kind of matches him there. And like you said, the Cats forward line, I think, certainly do have the advantage. I think last time the two clubs played at Cardinia Park, Dan McStay had a pretty good game, and it was evident that the advantage the Lions had, but at the same time, at the other end, Marcus Adams was huge for the Lions, I thought. They didn't get the win. I think it was a 10-point win to Geelong. So even some of those players at their best, and without Adams this week, certainly going to be a hard one. I'm tipping the Cats by maybe a couple kicks. The week off is certainly going to help. It's always a funny one whether that you want it or not. Geelong have obviously been hindered by having one game in 27 days like they do for this week coming in. Just the one game in what is close to 4 weeks. But yeah, I think it's going to help them, bit refresh, especially with the older bodies in your Selwoods, your Dangerfields and your Hawkins. So the Cats by a couple kicks for me.
Yeah, I've written Brisbane off twice now in 2 weeks, so I'm remiss to do it again. But yeah, I think Geelong will get the job done here. I think this is as big a game Geelong have played in nearly a decade. I think, yeah, they've played a grand final in that time, but their record of maybe not getting it done when they've clearly been the best side for 10 years. I know Richmond won 3 flags, but over just longevity, what they've done for 10, 15 years has been unbelievable. But you could almost argue that 3 flags is unders for where they've been. If they get beaten a prelim by a side that they really should take care of here, I think it's a big blow. I think it's a big miss. It obviously won't be. I think we've called the edge of the cliff for Geelong for 4 or 5 years. That's not going to happen. I think we can accept that they're building again. They'll be around, but I think this would be a massive blow if they get beat. And I can't see it happening.
That'll wrap up our preview for Geelong Brisbane. Obviously, feel free to check out the rest of Zero Hanger TV with our trade talk and our preview of the Swans versus Pies ahead of this weekend's action.